Yes, I forgot to start it right away. Apologies. Everyone voted? Outside life factors wins, followed by student factors and instructor practices. Am I the only one that finds there an irony that no one thinks the program requirements are impacting students' motivation? Oh, I'm so glad that all the things I tell you you have to do or that Jennifer says you have to do.
I honestly think
Awesome.
if you're a good teacher, though, those program requirements just become part of life, and you just find a way to weave them in and make them help the students make sense of that, right? And so they don't always have to like it, but we just talk about why we do it and give them an explanation. And I think that helps a lot.
And wouldn't program requirements be more of our job as instructors, more so than the students?
I think there's a way to meet those program requirements and to discuss them in a way that connects it to the student's goals, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Jeremy, when I think of program requirements, I mean, I don't know what pops into your mind first. I'm thinking of, managed enrollment. Do we have a certain expectation for uh, intensity and duration, pre-assessment, post-assessment, co-enrollment? But maybe you're thinking of different requirements. But I think it's reflective of the inclusive nature of your local programs and to Rachel's point earlier, how well you do to make them feel comfortable with agency and empowerment. And
No,
yeah, it's
those
so important.
those are exactly the type of thing I was thinking about, John. And I, I think even the way that we uh, present those tasks to the students is so important that we're not just saying, oh, you have to take this TABE test, you just have to jump through this hoop, but instead to explain how this is useful for us and how we use it to help guide them to meeting their goals and that we do look at it, that we don't just have them take it and then it sits somewhere, that we're actually using those data. Um, Obviously, I'd use a little different terminology instead of those data with the student, but or the same thing with managed enrollment. We add students at the beginning of each month, and I focus on that's going to help us get the information that we need to make sure that we make the right class placement and things like that. I just think there are always ways there's a reason those program requirements are there. And if we focus on how those program requirements kind of connect to their goals and kind of guide their path toward those goals, um, I think it becomes a lot more meaningful to the students. You know, I've had students who want to come in and take the TABE so that they can know how they do. So,
And I don't necessarily think our assessments are so mandates are so arduous compared to K-12.
yeah, it was
Another
definitely a lot harder to sell the standardized testing in K-12, speaking from experience.
So, how much control do you feel you have over your students' motivation? Should say 1 being very little, and 5 being all of it, maybe. I hate 1 to 5s. I should have did 1 to 4. That would force you guys to go on either side. I know better. I'm better at assessment than this. Stay neutral and pick 3. That's totally fine. Where do you think you can exert control over your students' motivation?
I think how you feel about the curriculum. I mean, if you go in with, Ferris Bueller's teacher's personality, I think you're going to lose them right away. But if you come in pretty enthusiastic about what you're teaching and you can tie it to something relevant to them, I think you're going to have better buy-in.
Yeah, I definitely think that getting to know the student and figuring out what motivates each individual student is going to be more helpful than just trying to figure out how you're going to motivate everybody, because everybody's going to be motivated differently.
So I've been doing more intakes than I had for a while there just recently. And I had kind of forgotten some of my old patter, but it came back to me pretty quickly. And one of the things that I can kind of see easing some of the anxiety is, we'll talk about things that were hard for them in school, things that were easier. And when they say, "Oh, I'm really bad at math," I tell them, "Well, that's okay. I don't mind hearing that because we have teachers who are really good at teaching the math you need to know for GED. So that's not an issue for us. We'll get you what you need to get there as long as you're willing to put in the work with us too." And just kind of presenting that like, oh, math might be a big deal for you, but we know how to handle that here. Just giving them the confidence that you're in a place where we understand what we need to do to help you, I think can sometimes increase that motivation to continue and to try as well.
Becky, I love it. And the notion that that response is predicated upon, yeah, you can do it. We believe in you. And we never doubted that, right? And it's another hallmark of adult education and the approach, right? No grades here, Carnegie units, etc.
No red pen needed.
Absolutely. I don't think you can say enough about positive reinforcement and finding those moments to reinforce, which means listening to your students. And like when I listen to my ESL students and they pull in a vocabulary word from somewhere else, I notice it. I speak on it. I say, "That's excellent. Look at how much you're learning." I think that we have a tremendous amount of impact on their motivation in that regard.
Okay, so go ahead. Somebody have some?
Well, I just wanted to add, and I don't want to digress too much. I really think too, with adults, um, we can embrace more of our adult learner methodology. And I do believe positive reinforcement is important, especially when it's specific and timely and contextualized. I also think too, can benefit from us reframing and not always having to uh, verbally pat them on the back and just recognize, wow, you're making a lot of progress. Or where we're focused more on intrinsic motivation and really their goals, the reason why they're at your classroom, within your classroom, etc. Thank you.
Okay, so now I'd like you to pull out, hopefully you guys got access to it wherever you're taking your study guide that you had for this unit and looking at pulling that out for discussion for the next question. I'd like to break you into some small groups and I'd like you to discuss these 2 questions. Which current practice in your classroom might lower motivation? And where do you feel tension between program requirements and student needs? So I'm going to create 21. So I'm going to create Yeah. 6 breakout rooms. And I'm going to go ahead and open them up. Does anybody have any questions before we begin?
So on the study guide, is that part one, question one?
From your study guide, it was one of the first questions where it asked, yeah, part one, where it asked, it's the exact same questions. Or pretty
Thanks.
close. Pretty close. I might have verged them a little different, but pretty close. All right, I'm going to open up the rooms then. All right, what did you hear in your discussion that resonated with you and about like maybe your current practices and maybe tension sometimes between program requirements and maybe student goals or students' needs?
I feel very fortunate that the discussion center, a lot of our discussion centered around uh, some demotivating factors. And it's something that hadn't even occurred to me. So that's why these things are so great to do, because it hadn't even occurred to me. But tending to focus on the larger group and not giving your students like the breakout rooms and the one-on-one times to build those connections, to motivate them coming back and attendance and sharing and making them feel more. That was something that just hadn't occurred to me till now. So now it does. So I really enjoyed that. Thanks.
Others.
We talked about just like what might lower motivation, and I said just teaching math. So when I first started teaching math for ESL, I'm not a math teacher by trade. I was like, this is boring. And so I was like, I don't want to do boring math anymore. So I started developing games. Like I bought 12-sided dice. We do multiplication and then we multiply again. And so we would get these big, long multiplication things. Or I figured out I made a tic tac toe. We have races for multiplication, like who can roll the highest digit and then kind of filling in the hearts. So there's all these things that we've done that I was like, oh, I'm not motivated. And then it in turn helped me to actually like math. So I'm just saying, play some games and you'll have a good time. But I'm catching my students doing, math in their mind, and I can do math in my brain much better. I can just look at a problem and be like, well, the answer is, 456.
So we can teach old dogs new tricks. Is that what we're saying? The more we use our brains and train them.
Yeah. I'm only in my 40s. It's just my new 20.
I think that was to me.
I think the more you shop sales, the better I am at math. 30% off.
Hey, listen, the toilet paper math, if you can do that in the aisle on the fly, which is the better buy, you've got it down.
That's actually a really good one.
Yeah.
Or diapers. I used to do it with diapers. Which pack is cheaper?
Yeah.
Is a double roll really a double roll?
There's lots to consider on. That's exactly right. Exactly right.
I see a whole unit. Somebody can do this.
You really could. You really could.
Others.
One really quick general one, if I get stuck in too much of a rhythm of here's how I run my class. We have a group discussion, all of our courses are online, and then just have teacher to student interaction one at a time. It could be too boring and formulaic. So once
Yeah.
again, just trying to think about what are some other ways to switch it up to keep students interested could help motivation.
I'm practicing my wait time.
Good modeling.
Thank you. I always question this ESL breakout room maybe, and maybe ESL in general, do we give them enough credit to say, why can't we put them in 10 breakout rooms with groups of 2 and give them some topic to discuss and they just talk? They're adults. Do we have to monitor it?
Nope. When I put mine in the breakout room, I say you're gonna do the conversation twice, and if you get done, then you can talk about whatever you want as long as it's English. And sometimes you can see the microphones just going like crazy. So
I do the same thing, Debbie. Yep, and I too watch the microphones pop off. So yeah.
And how about like in a traditional classroom? I mean, is there any reason they can't be broke up? I mean, is that what you do? Do you put them in groups of 2 to practice their conversational skills?
We always group our students um, in ESL.
I always do an opening activity for my English social studies and then even opening activity for math when we go into that. And it's, whether it's conversation dice or I have a question on the board that relates to what we're talking about, or I've also started, because we're doing social studies now, talking about civic engagement and really like pulling up news articles. So we talked about the Sioux Falls pools that were opening and talked about the free lunches the other day that are available for kids because they need to know these things, right? But then also talking about where do you find this information? And we're reading the articles together. Sometimes we listen to it. One time it was the in Orange City, they had the Tulip Festival, and I was talking about how I was hoping I got to go, but I didn't get to go because kids, but talking about fun things to do around and what are fun things or cultural celebrations that we've had for Cultures for You, and those kinds of things.
One of the things
Well,
John just shared. Go
yeah.
ahead. Go ahead.
Well, it gets me excited. We had this initiative in the past. I think we need to revisit it again in the future. But, when we talk about student motivation and changing our classroom techniques and delivery, etc., for me, the college and career readiness standards and the English language proficiency standards often are so dense, obtuse, and inaccessible. And I find that the TSTM framework, especially here, these topic areas, and Rachel's recent point, I think, in a way, in a breath, she had identified some sort of health literacy, and then she was talking about community engagement. I'm thinking civics education, online digital literacy skills, and how that relates to workforce prep. And again, making this all relevant for our students' lives, so that they can really see the direct effects of your instruction and why you're covering this, and helping them take more agency or ownership of their program of study. So thank you.
And I think it's pretty, we have a lot of experienced teachers on here, and I believe that it isn't that none of us don't know something, it's just all of a sudden we don't realize we fell into a pattern, and that maybe we need to
Yes.
look at it differently, and maybe why some common instructional techniques could be interpreted negatively. Because I really don't feel like when we look at these negative impacting things that negatively impact motivation, I really don't think there are many Ferris Buellers in teachers. I'll use it, Jennifer. in Adult education, because we have so much to cover and so little time, and thanks. So little to cover, or so much cover, so little time to cover it, that we know we can't um, get too involved with, test rates. Like, who cares? That kind of stuff. What is really our our students' goals, and how can we make them happen? And I think, Rachel, like you saying, it's like, well, they have some goals, and this is why I'm going to change up my curriculum to meet those goals. Um, so what do you think typically drives instruction more? Student goals or your goals?
Oh, that's an interesting one because Starlin actually spoke on that a little bit as we were discussing the breakout room.
So, Starlin, what did you say?
Oh,
And I wasn't listening. What did I say?
yeah, you did say that when you're in the large group, you're a lot of times the topic of conversation is the things that you focus on, and rather than handing that over to your students, which is what the breakout rooms, when we were talking about that, is very helpful for, because the things that might drive them are not necessarily what you think they are.
Right.
Yeah, that's what she said, and it was very good, and I wrote it down. So, yeah. Good point.
No one else has these. Everyone else always has their student goals at the top of their mind rather than their own goals for their students, right?
Of course.
I mean, I question if I do. And I think I need to reflect and investigate that further. It's hard to parse.
Mm.
Well, yeah, I mean, hypothetically, I'm just thinking your lesson plan, right? Can we take a look at that, the topic area, and see if any one of these five frames through that TSTM? Because again, to belabor it, I will. If we can engage them, on one of those five topics, I mean, ideally in multiple, but in one of those in a way that we hadn't before, it's a lifelong investment, right? It's going to help them
But is it their
and their
goal,
family.
or is that your goal?
Something I do when questions come up in class or students specifically say, I want to learn about this or I want to learn about a topic, I'll make it my homework to try to get them extra things, extra material. For example, yesterday we were talking about phrasal verbs in my higher level reading class, separable and inseparable. And a student asked, hey, could we have a list of some common inseparable verbs? And I said, yeah, that'll be my homework this week, and I'll give it to you when we come back on Tuesday. So it's gauging their own goals, gauging their own interests, and it helps me stay accountable as well.
Looking at those five topic areas for TSTM, I would have to do some reflection, but I would think that a good portion of my students' goals and not my goals would fall under one of those categories. Most, perhaps not all.
Well, we can't necessarily be all things to all people at all times either. There's a trick for me asking you this because you guys are experienced teachers. So, what happened if I decide, or your director, or whoever you work for, says, you're going to mentor a new teacher, somebody who hasn't been in the field of adult education yet. And your role is to help them understand how common teaching practices impact students and shape their learning experiences. Because a lot of common practices that we've all been exposed to can fall into these negative groups in here. Or I hate to call them negative. They are negative groups in there. So I would like you to, I'm going to break you back out into groups, and I will share the slide with you, sorry. Um, Keeping in mind that you're now the mentor, and you're going to, as a group, choose at least one, and then talk about the questions below related to that particular topic. Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and go out then so I don't end up screwing up your numbers with your groups because I do have to job coach here in a little bit and I want to make sure he's there on time.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, are we ready? All right. What did you hear in your discussion that resonated with you?
Well, one thing that our group talked about, we focus on the one size fits all instruction, and we think it tends to happen when we have a really big group or if we have a lot of new students added, all of a sudden it can be easy to revert to that one size fits all instruction.
Well, okay, so my next question goes actually right along with this. How do you know, knowing your students' goals, we talked about this can help you address, and make it a meaningful experience for them and not slip into the negative. But how do you know your students' goals? Especially in those situations where all of a sudden you have a very large group or you have a lot of new students at one time, whether you're online or face to face.
At LSS, um, our enrollers ask those questions, and then they pass it on to the teachers. But in my classes, we address goals at the beginning of every month. So, like, what are your goals? Why do you want English? What are you going to use it for? Kind of at that low level comprehension. So that's what I do in my classroom and what we do here at LSS.
So you're constantly you and they are both constantly revisiting their goals.
Right. Right, exactly. Because life changes.
Well, and it also kind of that helps set the tone for the class for new students as well then, right?
Right. And because our monthly we have curriculum that changes every month, we can like, well, great, this month we're going to be learning about how to talk to the doctor, or we're going to be learning about those type of, if it fits their goals, we can like enhance it and motivate them to, oh, you're going to get what you're looking for this month. Stay tuned in, right?
Now you're in the wrong group. Let me see if I can find you someone else.
No, they all tend to want about the same thing. At least at my level.
Others would
Building relationship. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep, yeah.
Okay, sorry. I didn't see the sound thing bouncing. Anyway, building relationship also helps as well. When you're talking, just even if it's not written on their enrollment, just talking to them, learning those things. Or, sometimes we have a lot of students and we forget, and then they say, "Oh, I'm doing this because remember I want to study." Oh, yeah. That helps as well.
So you guys are all going to be good at being mentors for new teachers, right? It's a trick question because my staff get a new teacher in a week.
I don't know. And when I start my class every day, I come up with group discussion questions, and it always comes up on something in the future, or just they open up about different things in the beginning as I'm waiting for students to come in. So you find out a lot of stuff just by open discussion. It's like open journaling in a way, but when we're talking, we find out a lot of things that way.
I concur with that. My chattiness is very helpful for figuring out goals because we're always consistently having those conversations of, hey, what's up? How are you? How are things? You know, what are you doing? Like, how was your weekend? What are some fun things you did? I think just having that personable relationship with them and then talking to them, just as I would talk to anybody else makes a huge difference. And they're just much more willing to share and be open.
Our group talked, well, we started talking about the one size fits all instruction, but then Starlin, I'll call her out again, she said that she was thinking about lack of autonomy and how actually that really fits well with the one size fits all instruction. If the students don't get a choice, in do I want to read this or do I want to listen to this? Or how do I want to learn this? Kind of multimodal learning and giving the students choice of which type of activity they want to do or how they want to consume this material, or even potentially what subject. If the students have autonomy, then it's not going to be one size fits all instruction either. So they kind of go together. So it can either, give the student a chance to shine with, doing things in a way that meets their strengths, fits their strengths, or if they choose to challenge themselves in something that they know they need, they can choose to do that too.
I think that's a good place for us to stop and ponder stop with the subject and ponder it. I'm going to skip to one more. Last slide. Next month is we're taking a break from this, so you'll have a little while. Your curriculum study guide should go up the first week in June, but we won't be doing this till July, so keep that in mind. And next month, Heather Glidewell from LSS has graciously agreed to present on writing development. So we're going to take a little break from this and go into writing development. Questions? I'm excited for this.
So in July, we're doing instructor-related factors 2, part 2.
Yeah, it's 2. You're right.
Oh, okay. I was confused for a second. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, you should be because it was supposed to be a 2. Dang it. I tried so hard to make sure they were right this time. I still screwed up the last slide. So,
I've been meaning.
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying, I've been meaning to tell you, Kim, I really love the format of this. It feels very SpongeBob in a very good way. It's beautifully summary.
Good. I'm glad. I just like going through the lessons. I'm enjoying them. So great. I'm glad you guys are too. Anything else? Well, have a good rest of your month and enjoy the sunny weather. I heard it's supposed to be in the high 80s next week, so get ready for that. Change your wardrobe again.
Have a safe holiday weekend, everyone. Take
Yes,
care.
enjoy.
Thank
See you,
you.
everyone.
Travel well, Mr. Anderson.